Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Hooton, the host of Voices Against Filicide. Thank you for listening and for being a part of this mission. Together, we are raising awareness, educating, sharing resources, and keeping the voices of these children alive. Every time you listen, you share, or leave a review, you are helping us reach more people and make a difference. If you'd like another way to support, we have a Voices Against Filicide merchandise shop, where shirts, hats, mugs, bags, and so much more. Wearing or using these items help spread the awareness of filicide and help keep Alec and Lydia's story and all the other stories of children alive. This builds community and the dedication for change. You can find the merchandise at voicesagainstfilicide.odoo.com or through the link in the show notes. Thank you for standing with me as we speak truth, honor their lives, and fight for change. Trigger warning. The following podcast contains content that may be deeply disturbing. You will hear first-hand accounts from parents and family members who have lost children to filicide, the murder of a child by a parent or caregiver. These stories are raw, emotional, and shared from the perspective of those who have lived them. They include details of unimaginable loss, system failures, and trauma. Please take care while listening. If at any point you need to pause, stop, or step away, we understand. Welcome to Voices Against Filicide. I'm your host, Hope Hooton, a mother who has walked this journey and an advocate turning my pain into purpose. This podcast sheds light on filicide cases, statistics, who these children were, and the advocacy being done in their honor, and so much more. Together, we speak truth, honor their lives, and fight for change. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to honor two of the brightest lights I've ever known. My children, Alec and Lydia. Alec with his love of Pokemon and his kind heart, and Lydia full of joy and her love of unicorns. They were my whole world. They were joy in human form. Their laughter, their hugs, their imaginations, all of it lives inside me. In this podcast and in the work I do every day to protect children and make change. This podcast is for them. It's for every child whose voice was stolen too soon. Alec and Lydia, you are my why, and I will never stop fighting in your name. Thank you for joining me today. And let's get right into today's episode. Welcome back to Voices Against Filicide, the podcast that sheds light on stories too often ignored and children too often failed by the system meant to protect them. Today's episode is deeply personal. It's about Alec and Lydia, my beautiful children, whose lives were taken far too soon. This is our story. This is the truth of how I tried to protect them, but was ignored at every turn. A little bit of backstory about my kids. Alec was 7 years old. He loved Pokemon, trail life, singing, and worshiping Jesus. He was joyful, spirited, loved, and he loved to play at the park with his friends, usually playing basketball or soccer. He was such a protective big brother to his little sister, Lydia. He loved spending time with family and his friends. Lydia was 6 years old. She was so vibrant, creative. She loved unicorns, homemade macaroni and cheese that I made in my Instapot, and she loved arts and crafts. She loved building elaborate things with magnet tiles, so much so that I would have to dodge them every time I went into her bedroom, and usually I would step on one or two. She loved watching Bluey, and she adored her big brother Alec and followed him everywhere. They were best friends. They brought so much light into this world and into my life. The early warning signs. A little bit of background information. My husband and I got married in 2015. Everything was going well. We had Alec. It was so fun to be first-time parents learning how to take care of a small child. Then we had Lydia. Everything was good. Smooth sailing for the most part. However, I lost my mom in a car accident in 2021. Then my dad died of kidney failure in 2022. I had abuse in the relationship before these events happened. However, the escalation after my parents' death was significant. Emotional and psychological abuse, and even increasing instability after my parents' deaths. It was like waking up every morning and riding a roller coaster without my seatbelt fastened. I didn't know what I was getting into each day or even each hour, what person I was going to encounter that day, even though this was supposed to be the person that I loved. His instability was erratic. It was like walking on eggshells. I want to let you know, my listeners, if you are in a relationship or in a marriage and you are feeling unsafe, please tell someone and make a plan to leave. If someone is physically posturing and is escalating, leading to physical violence, you need to leave. I asked for a divorce on October 9th, 2023. I didn't know what he would say after asking for this divorce, but his response was nothing that I could have imagined. He stated, "Well, then you need to come and get the kids because I'm going to kill myself in front of them." This was the first glaring red flag in a series of red flags. Please do not ignore suicide threats, ever. I called the police immediately after hanging up with him. The police came, they talked to all of us, and determined that yes, I was in a controlling relationship. They could tell this because he tried to keep talking for me, so they had to separate us in order for me to talk freely. He did admit that he did say that he was going to commit suicide. So for the due diligence of doing their jobs, they called the ambulance and he was transported for evaluation at the local hospital. This was his first evaluation. I followed the safety instructions by the police officers. They told me to go to a hotel after packing bags for myself and the kids. I did what they said. I packed bags. I called friends and family and let them know. They were shocked. They had no idea anything was going on. That is something that I want you to understand. That if you are not able to freely talk about your relationship with your friends or family, especially in this context, that is a red flag of abuse and controlling, manipulative behavior. I got to the hotel and I called an attorney right away. I actually called a few, but only one answered. It was a holiday. So I talked with that attorney and they stated that another attorney would be calling me back if I wanted to hire them. I said yes. I want you to know that this was the first crack in the foundation of everything to come. Filing for divorce is a long process. It's not instantaneous and it doesn't happen overnight. It is very slow. I started gathering all of the documentation and evidence that I could to send to my attorney. I had oodles and oodles of evidence. On October 16th, 2023, I returned the kids to school after fall break. While we were at the hotel, I did let him see the kids via FaceTime and talk to them on the phone. However, I did not let him see them in person because I was taking the advice of the police officers stating that I should stay safe with the kids and not have any physical contact with him. When I dropped the kids off to school on Monday, October 16th, 2023, everything was good. They went to school and they were happy to be back in a normal environment. Then I started getting strange phone calls from Brock stating some really strange behavior. He kept talking about how we didn't have a covenant marriage and how I needed to get back in line and we needed to figure this out. He also said that he had Alec pray for us and that because Alec prayed for us, our marriage was saved. Things that didn't make sense and I knew weren't true. He was just grasping at straws. He was very burdened with his language on his voicemails. He couldn't construct a full sentence coherently. I could tell it took a lot of effort for him to articulate his thoughts to me. This was very strange because he was an engineer. He was very smart and analytical, and so language normally for him was not a big deal. I got nervous after hearing the voicemails, so I contacted the police department. Unfortunately, because we didn't have orders in place from an actual judge because it was too early in the divorce process, mind you, it was like a week after I filed the paperwork for divorce, that there was nothing he could do because I found out that he took the kids out of school without me knowing. I actually had a mom gut feeling that something was wrong, and I called the school to ask if the kids were okay, and the secretary told me that they had been checked out early. I was very concerned, so that's why I called the police and asked for assistance. However, they could not assist me because I didn't have proper documentation from a judge. That night, we made a plan for Brock to take the kids back to school on that Tuesday morning the next day. I went to bed and I felt comfortable with the plan. Later that same night at about 11:30 p.m., I got woken up by the Surprise Police Department stating that I needed to come to the hotel and get the kids because Brock had called 911 on himself. They had to give me the address to the hotel and information on what was going on because I had no idea. Mind you, I knew that they were at a hotel, but I didn't know what specific hotel they were at. When I got to the hotel, the police were very concerned, and they had already taken Brock to a psychiatric facility voluntarily. They convinced him that he needed help, and he stated that he would like to go. So they took him via police car to a psychiatric facility. I then was talking to the police officers on scene. They stated that Brock had called 911 on himself because he was having thoughts of suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation. So this is number 2 of red flag of saying that he was suicidal or possibly homicidal. He was paranoid. He was talking to the dispatcher and stating things like, "Do you believe in Satan? Are you a part of the cult of Satan? I believe that my wife and church are the church of Satan. Satan told me to sacrifice my children. However, I chose Jesus." These are direct quotes from the police report dispatch notes. These were very alarming, obviously, to the dispatcher and the police, so they came right away. With this evidence, they were able to convince him to go get psychiatric treatment, and that's what he did. I picked up the kids from the hotel and took them back home, and they were able to go back to sleep in their beds safely. I immediately called my attorney the next morning and explained exactly what happened because I didn't know the next steps. He then recommended that we apply for emergency temporary orders. So we filed those. We wanted to make sure that the kids were safe and that he could not come around them in his psychiatric state. We were granted emergency temporary orders that same day, Wednesday. He was in the psychiatric hospital for 9 days of treatment. This was huge because myself and my attorney thought that he would only be in there for 72 hours, for a 72-hour hold, but they kept him for 9 days. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder with psychosis. I want you to understand that this wasn't just regular bipolar. It was bipolar to the point that the pendulum was so far swung in the opposite direction that he was having psychosis. He was hearing voices in his head. This is documented. I want you to know that we had all of this information. We expressed this information in our documentation to the judge. The court never looked at it or reviewed any of it. This was our opportunity to create a safe boundary. Instead, it was completely ignored. I also had a protection order put in place. And on that protection order for myself, I put that Brock had weapons and I would like them to be removed. I, however, still have no idea to this day if those weapons were actually removed or not. This is a gap in our system. There needs to be something out there that tells the victim who is applying and has a protection order if guns were involved and if the guns were actually removed from the perpetrator. After Brock was released from the 9-day stay at the psychiatric facility, he went back home to his home state of Michigan and lived with his family for a few weeks. We had a hearing virtually to discuss emergency temporary orders, as that's something that you have to do in the court system, because the judge had to talk to both of us and see if the emergency temporary orders that were granted would stay in place or if there would be a different temporary orders. Going into that hearing, I felt prepared. We had evidence like the order of protection. We had a statement from the neighbors stating that Brock had come back to the house when he shouldn't have, which meant that he broke the order of protection. And we had evidence of his psychiatric stay. We expressed that we would like Brock to have supervised visits with the children. I didn't want to take custody away, and I knew that that probably wouldn't happen in the state of Arizona anyways. So I went for supervised visits because I still wanted them to see their dad. I just wanted them to be safe. We had the hearing, and like I said, my attorney and I thought it went really well. However, after 48 hours of the judge looking over everything, only 48 hours, he came to the decision that we would both share 50-50 unsupervised custody of the kids. We were in shock because we had police reports, we had dispatch notes, we had information from the psychiatric facility. But none of this was looked at. All of it was ignored. Honestly, I felt like the judge was taking Brock's word on everything. Brock didn't have to prove what medications he was taking. The judge didn't ask to talk to a psychiatrist from the facility or an outside psychiatrist that he was seeing because he was released. He didn't ask for any evidence specifically from Brock. There was no requirement of documentation or follow-up at all. He was mentally unwell. There are records, but the judge chose to ignore every single one. So, I had to start co-parenting because that was the judge's orders. Even though I knew it wasn't the right decision, I couldn't do anything about it. So we started co-parenting. He got a job, he got a place to live, he was gainfully employed, he took care of the children, as did I. We did homework with them. We made sure that they were able to go to birthday parties and to friends' houses. We made sure that Alec went to Trail Life, which is like Boy Scouts, but more Christian-based. He loved that. He went every Tuesday with Brock. So, over the next 7 months, after we saw the judge twice, we felt comfortable because he was doing all of these green flags. And so we did have the judge order a psychological evaluation. In that psychological evaluation, the evaluator did state that Brock was being very calculated with his answers. He could tell that. And in a statement in the report, it says, Brock might not be as stable as he seems. This statement should have been looked into. He should have been asked to do another psychological evaluation or to be monitored by a team of physicians. Again, we have no idea at all, even now, if he was ever treated by an outside psychiatrist. This was never proven or asked about. There was no follow-up on medication compliance, and actually, the judge stated in court orders that if I wanted to know if he was taking his medication, I would have to be the one to ask him. As a victim of domestic violence, you should never put the burden of medication compliance on the other person. That should be the job of a medical provider. So that's another red flag. There was no other documentation at all that was submitted to the courts. No other questions at all from the court or the judge. The system had multiple chances to stop, but no other safeguards or protocols were put in place. And on May 17th, I dropped the kids off for what would be my last time seeing them alive. I dropped them off at school like normal. Alec ran and said hi to his friends, and Lydia dropped her backpack down and came back and gave me a running hug. That was the last time I saw them alive. On Sunday, May 19th, at night, Brock shot and killed Alec and Lydia before turning the gun on himself. I didn't know anything was wrong until Monday, May 20th, when the school called me around 10:15 a.m. The secretary told me that the kids did not show up to school that day and they had an unexcused absence. I thought that that was strange, and I immediately hung up the phone with her and called Brock with no answer. I texted and still no answer. I went over to his house and knocked on his door. There was silence inside, which I thought was strange because Alec and Lydia would have made noise. Even if they were sick, they would have yelled that somebody was at the door. I called 911, and after like an hour of explaining what was going on And after they did their safety checks of knocking on the door, calling his phone themselves, knocking on windows, going around the perimeter, they stated that they got permission from their sergeant to go inside for everybody's safety involved. They went inside and found all 3 dead via gunshot wounds to the head. My life was shattered. Their future was stolen, and it didn't have to happen. It's been 15 months since that horrific day, but I'm still here. I'm here to fight and make change in their honor. I'm here to make change so that no other family has to go through the pain of losing a child to filicide. I'm fighting to make sure that no other voice is silenced. I'm fighting for people going through family court with psychiatric instability. I want to make sure that the judges understand mental health and understand how to help. The system ignored everything that Brock was going through. I'm working with different state legislators to change laws so that this does not continue to happen. I'm asking for judge accountability, mandatory psychiatric record reviews, mandatory follow-ups, that the children are safe and that the person with the psychiatric illness is getting the support that they need. This is not a game. These are lives, real children, real pain, real loss. Now it's your turn. This is a call to action. Please share this episode with anyone and everyone. Stand with me as I fight for change. We demand change in family court across this country. We don't want other parents to feel the pain that we have felt. We don't want another child lost to filicide. Your voice matters. Your voice can save lives. So please share this episode. Tag a senator. Tag a legislator. Tag all of your family and friends, because this needs to be talked about. This cannot be silenced anymore, because that's what the courts depend on, is silence. Thank you for listening to Voices Against Filicide. If Alec and Lydia's story has moved you, share it. Let their names echo beyond this moment. Join us again as we continue to bring light to the darkest corners of our system that is so broken, and fight for those who can no longer speak for themselves. This is your host, Hope Hooton. Until next time, remember, be kind and always abound in hope. Next week on Voices Against Filicide, I have the opportunity to share Pierce's story. Pierce was a 9-year-old boy who lost his life to filicide. Pierce's story is unique because his mother, Leslie, is fighting for change and making that change. I am so excited to bring you Pierce's story and all about Leslie's organization, Pierce's Pledge. Please come back and join us again on Voices Against Filicide.